Welcome to the Find My Catalyst podcast. We all have problems we're looking to solve. We know that there are solutions out there, but we struggle with this. How do we find the solution? Where does the nudge come from that help us take the next step and start solving tough problems? The intention of this podcast is to help you find your catalyst and take the next step. My name is Mike Simmons. I am the founder of Catalyst Sale.
And my name's Jody Mayberry, and I'm the host of Catalyst Sale sometimes. But Mike wanted to...
You are the host of the Find My Catalyst podcast. You are not the host of Catalyst Sale, Jody. And we're doing the recording because we keep messing around with the intro, and Mike, now we're breaking the fourth wall.
This is a hard habit to break. It's been, and I try my best. We've said Catalyst Sale for so long, and of course we could edit that out, but we won't because that's how things do. But this is what I appreciate. Mike doesn't let it slide. He holds me accountable to saying the proper name that I should be saying.
Jody, you are a professional.
You would think so, but I keep saying the name wrong. And I think what did it is, since I didn't do the intro myself, my mind just reverted to the historic name that I no longer will say. But speaking of finding your catalyst, we're going to talk about accountability this time. So, Mike, tee us up for this.
Yeah, accountability, it kind of can be looked at through two lenses. And one lens is personal accountability. How do you hold yourself accountable? And the other one would be, how do you hold your team accountable? How do you hold the people around you, your kids, your family, your business partners, your employees? So there's accountability from the perspective of self and the accountability from the perspective of others. Why don't we start with self?
I think that's a good place to start. And with it being the time of year that it is, we're thinking about what we're going to accomplish this year. And part of reaching what you set for yourself is being able to hold yourself accountable. What do you do personally, Mike, to hold yourself accountable?
I have not done a very good job with this over the past bit. I've kind of gotten myself into a rut, so to speak, reactive position where I've struggled with it. But some of the systems that I've put in place, though, recently to help me are both analog and digital systems. And I know that sounds a little too sciencey, too engineering focused early in the year, but basically I have a checklist that I have on a whiteboard inside the gym that we've got inside the house, the area where we work out, where it has some words and then some checkboxes next to those words. And each day I give myself a checkbox if I accomplished the thing I wanted to accomplish. So there's a visual cue that I have inside the gym to use to help support that level of holding myself personally accountable. On the digital side, though, I wear a Garmin watch and I wear an Oura ring, and I keep track of data on both of those devices relative to specific goals that I've set for myself. And I can look at my measurements there as just a quick accountability check to determine, am I on target? Am I on target for my goal for the week? Am I on target for my goal for the day? Whatever that goal is. So the way that I hold myself personally accountable is by putting reminders out there that I can look at quickly to nudge myself in one direction or the other.
So it's kind of like having a dashboard to know where you're at. Do you use your watch, your ring to track your progress? Have you found that being able to track and measure helps keep you accountable?
It hasn't hit the results that I want. So I think there's a difference between holding myself accountable to doing certain work, actually getting that work done, being okay with missing on the work that I need to do and realizing that, hey, tomorrow's another day. Do I think it helps me? Yeah, it's a good reminder for things. It keeps things front of mind. Now, it can also be obsessive, though. You think of like when you've gone through your 10,000 steps a day for what seems like an eternity. How long has it been now, Jody?
We're closing in. March will make 6 years.
So 6 years of 10,000 steps a day. Now, some might say you have an illness, that you haven't been able to break away from the from the pattern. But yeah, so there's a chain that you create over a period of time where it just would feel wrong to not do it. You went from, hey, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to have a goal of 10,000 steps a day to I'm the type of person who takes 10,000 steps a day. And if you do something that's different, then now you run into an integrity issue. And I think integrity and accountability align really well with each other. And by having a high level of integrity and being the type of person that you want to be relative to walking, you do the work each day and get the walking done, whether you're sick, whether it's, come rain or shine, Jody's out there getting the steps in, even when you're traveling, because in the past 6 years, I'm sure you've traveled a bit. I'm sure haven't felt well, but you've still gone through and kept the streak going. So I think accountability and integrity go hand in hand. That might be an interesting direction to take the conversation.
I don't know if I would have thought of that, put that thread together, but you said maybe I have an illness. Lee Cockrell suggested I check into the Betty Ford Clinic.
Yeah, Lee's a smart guy.
Well, this is the other part of it, though, that there are certain things that I do, 2 things I do every single day. I walk 10,000 steps and I write a letter to my kids. And that one I've done for more than 16 years, every day. But there are other things where I've said, I'm going to do this and I don't do it. But if I'm doing it for someone else, it gets done. So somewhere, Mike, there's a gap where certain things I do every single day. Other things I've promised myself are going to get done. Let's say writing a book 3 years in a row. And let's make this year 4 years in a row. I have said this is the year I finally get the book published. I haven't even finished it. But yet, when I'm writing for someone else, I always get it done. So there's a gap there, Mike.
Yeah. So then the question is, you make good on your commitments to others, but you fail on your commitments to self. And it's not that you're not a person of high integrity. You go out there and you do the things you say that you're going to do. But then you also can justify why you've prioritized other things over something else. You can start to justify why you're making a decision to eat the ice cream or go back for a couple of seconds on the apple pie or go. I know this is a word that Lee despises, but you procrastinate. You can be a productive procrastinator by going out and doing things that you think are important that may not be on the same level of the other priorities that you have out there. So by putting together a checklist, like we talked about, that was on the whiteboard, you can go quickly make certain decisions, visualizing something and say, does this thing align with the thing that I'm working to get done? Am I moving toward each of the things that I'm trying to do? Also on that whiteboard, I have 23 boxes on that whiteboard. 23 boxes for a week's worth of work. And we'll include an image in some way, shape, or form so that people can see this. But I've got 23 boxes, 3 to 4 boxes associated with each day, all associated with each of these words. At the end of the week, I can look back and see how many boxes did I check off. There are some weeks in the last 6 weeks or so that I only checked off 8. There are other weeks where I've checked off 21. In no week have I checked off all 23. It doesn't mean that I didn't go out and do the work and get good work done. It's just I didn't execute on my goal. But the checklist that I have in front of me allows me to maintain a level of focus and make appropriate decisions when challenges come up.
I've got a question on how personal accountability ties into the next part of this conversation. So let me give you an example. When I was in the law enforcement academy, we had elections where there was like a president of the class, a sergeant who had to enforce all the rules, and the treasurer. And I was elected the treasurer. And one time in class, there was a kid sneaking Skittles. I guess I shouldn't say kid. There was another cadet sneaking Skittles and eating them during class. And I happened to be sitting next to the sergeant. And I elbowed him and I said, "Hey, Mike Simmons is over there eating Skittles. You should probably enforce that." And in all seriousness, he said, "No, I don't think I will because I might want to sneak some candy in class too." And therefore he didn't. And it just makes me think he didn't hold someone else accountable because he knew he might not be able to hold himself accountable. And he may want to bend the rule. So how does personal accountability, in your opinion, impact your ability to hold other people accountable?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think the big one that jumps out at me is if I'm unable to do it myself or for myself, how can I expect others to be able to do it? This gets into, it's that old saying, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, I think. Is that how that works? But like there are other people who will say, hey, do as I say, not as I do. That's crap. Like, what do you mean do as I say, not as I do? Get out. If you're going to say something, embody it. I can tell you, when people work with me directly, I am the same person regardless of the role that person has. Like there's what you see is what you get. There's a high level of integrity in the way that I'll communicate, the way that I'll interact with others. I won't put on a face in one area and then come back and handle things differently in another. Just because it's too difficult to, one, I don't think it's the right thing to do, but it's also difficult to be able to maintain a level of control there. So how does this go back to the Skittle thing? In that instance, someone might say, so what? Now, if that's a rule, if the rule is you can't bring other candy in, and we're trying to maintain a level of discipline inside the organization, and all rules are important so that we're able to execute on the work that we're doing, then as soon as you let that one slide, then the next question is, well, what other rules are you going to put together that you're going to let slide? Now, on the flip side of that, if I'm the sergeant and you come to me and say that, I'd like to say, Jody, that's a great catch. Why don't you go have a conversation with Mike, see what's going on there? Because maybe Mike needs sugar because of, for whatever reason. Those little Skittles are the way to help get his blood sugar up. But there might be something else there rather than reinforce the tattling that happened in here. And it's weird. It's tough because we're saying, look, we're going to hold ourselves all to this standard. And when I see something, I should say something. Well, there's an appropriate way to say something and handle those things properly so that you can hold people directly accountable, but not make it a bigger issue than it needs to be. Like not sticking their face in it and say, hey, Mike, we told you not to bring Skittles in. Why'd you bring Skittles in? You shouldn't be bringing Skittles in.
That's right. There in the workplace, I think there's ways to handle this and holding other people accountable because maybe there is a backstory. In the situation I gave, there probably should have been no leeway without enforcement because that was the environment of being in the academy. But your office is not a law enforcement academy. You don't need to run it the same way. And I always thought, or I wouldn't have brought it up, that the sergeant handled that poorly because his role was to enforce all the rules that the commander put in place and to not do it because you yourself might want to break the rule and therefore you shouldn't enforce rules. It's probably not the way to do it. And that shows another side of this, of holding others accountable and personal accountability, that if you, now I'm reading into this because I didn't talk to him about it, but he didn't hold other people accountable because he doubted that he personally could meet those standards. But if everybody's reaching for the same standards, it's all right to mess up sometimes. Like you're holding other people accountable and you mess up sometimes. That's still okay.
Well, and think about what you said before. You are more accountable to the commitments that you make to others than you are to the commitments you make to yourself, just as an individual. I imagine there are other people that are out there like that too. You're, as much as you're a special snowflake, Jody, you're not that unique.
That's not what my granny told me.
I know, but your granny's a great person, or was a great person. But there are other people out there who are probably struggling with the same thing. So if you're struggling with this stuff, maybe you're trying to do too much. Maybe you're trying to hold yourself to a standard that is unrealistic, unreasonable, especially if you continue to fail at those levels. So what happens if you lower the bar a little bit and start getting comfortable executing against that standard and then start to level the standard up slightly? So give yourself a bit of grace here relative to how you hold yourself accountable for things, and think about how much value you might get in having an accountability partner as you're both committing to these things. I think if we go back to the STEP discussion, wasn't it you and a cousin or you and a friend who had started this originally?
Yeah, my cousin. Yeah.
Backstory? Yeah. So you started with this cousin and now you guys are going to work together to get this done. It's like going to the gym. You get a workout partner. You're both going to go there and get this thing done. And when the alarm clock goes off at 4:30 in the morning or 4:45 in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning, and you want to hit snooze, but you know that somebody else is going to be sitting there at the gym, you're going to more than likely going to have some more bigger boost to go out there and be there like you said you were. Now, if you're going out and doing it on your own, it's going to take a bit more discipline to go out and do it for yourself. So now let's think about this in the context of holding teams accountable. So if we agree that there are things that get in the way of holding ourselves personally accountable to the commitments that we make, because we start to prioritize other things and life just gets in the way, how can we as a team create this kind of accountability network to help hold each other accountable and remind each other of the thing that we said we were going to do, whether it's the thing that's on the checklist or the goal that we're looking to accomplish or the approach that we take in working with our customers. When I see Jody get out of line a bit, do something that doesn't align with what our objectives are, what our guiding principles are, privately, I can remind him. Now, if it's dangerous, if it's a safety issue, then that has to happen immediately so that nobody gets injured, nobody gets hurt, everything is handled properly. So there's different layers how, when, and where it makes sense to hold members of your team accountable. This is tough stuff. It's simple when you say it out loud, when you think about it in the context of individual things that we work on. But when you deal with complex environments and the different challenges that are happening that we're all dealing with, it starts to makes it less easy. It might be simple, but not super easy.
And as your team grows or you're in a bigger team, the more people that are added, the more complex and difficult this becomes because everybody brings in their own story. Like Mike said, maybe the one guy was eating Skittles that morning because he needed sugar for whatever reason. Well, you can throw in all sorts of things like that, and that might be exceptions, that might put pressure on standards. So accountability becomes, you know how hard it is to keep yourself accountable. Now imagine as your team grows from just you to 5 people, to 10 people, to 50 people, how much more difficult that becomes.
It highlights the importance of culture, right? If you've got this culture of accountability across the team, then these things start to happen when accountability partners, other people are there. You've got this backup that happens when the leader, and I put that in air quotes, the leader is not in the room. It's like what happens in a schoolroom when the substitute teacher's in the room. What happens in the schoolroom when the teacher leaves for just a couple of minutes? How does the team in the class operate? What changes? Why is it significantly different just because one person is in there or another person is in there? What expectations have we set? And as you think about that, as you extend this out across the team, the way that you build scale is with clarity of communication around principles that you're focused on relative to the way that you're going to operate in your operating environment. And this is where guiding principles are really important to me. And then if everybody understands those guiding principles, you can hold each other accountable out in the field when people get overworked, people get tired, people get stressed, whatever happens.
I think I can tie this back into something Mike said earlier. So Mike said when it comes to my steps, there was a point where it moved beyond I have a goal of 10,000 steps a day to being I'm the type of person that takes 10,000 steps a day. I think there's an important difference there because if you're the type of person that takes 10,000 steps a day, there's really not even a choice to make. It's what you do. So if you can apply that another way. So let's say you say, I'm the type of person, or let's say you have a goal that say, I'm going to make it a whole month without eating Skittles in the classroom. And you set that as a goal. Well, if you on day 4 do it, then you're like, I blew it. And maybe you do it on day 5, 6, 7, 8 and keep doing it. But if you say, I'm the type of person that doesn't eat Skittles in the classroom, different than I have a goal of not eating. So let's say you do it on day 5. Then you say, oops, I did that, but that's not the type of person I am. I'm not going to do that again. And I think there's a big difference there. So Mike talked about how integrity plays into accountability. Well, if it's just a goal and you blow it, you're likely to just walk away from it. But if it's an integrity issue where you say, I'm the type of person that doesn't do this, or I'm the type of person that does do this, then to stick with your integrity, even though you messed up once, you're going to go right back to it. What do you think of that, Mike?
Yeah, I think all of this stuff aligns. And we'll get into a number of these topics as we go through the year, whether it's related to goal setting and execution, or it's related to accountability, like we're talking about right now, or it's related to mindset, perspective. Like all of these things relate. I think it's really hard for someone to right out of the gate say, I'm the type of person who moves this much all the time, because it's hard to embrace that. Now you could write it down on a piece of paper and use that as the way that the thing that you move, the thing that you're moving toward, and believe that you're that type of person before you actually start doing the work. The where checklist and where data, whether it's the analog checklist or the digital data, can become really valuable is you might think that you're the type of person who does that, but when you actually look at the data, you're not. So how do I look at objective data to tell me, am I or am I not? And if I am, let's keep going. And if I'm not, let's continue to nudge or fix things and move things in the right direction. Yeah, I think all of this stuff is related, and we tend to overcomplicate it.
Well, Mike, I do think one thing that might help with accountability is the Catalyst Sale game plan. How can we find out more about that?
Yeah, if you go to catalystsale.com/game plan, you can see all of the information on the game plan. If you just go to the Catalyst Sale site, you'll see links for the game plan. And the game plan is goal setting and execution through clarity and focus. And and there are a number of different things that you can do. You can use a tool like that. You can build out your own checklist. You can start keeping track of lists. You can leverage technology. There are a number of ways to go about doing this. I think the key piece for me, just as we start to think about practical things that everybody can do right now, start with one thing, just one. If you've struggled with this, if you've struggled with your own personal accountability, start with one thing relative to that area that you want to hold yourself most accountable to, and work on that for a period of time. Build a practice around it, demonstrate some success, and then just start to add in other things that you can focus on. But Jody, thanks for bringing up the game plan, catalystsale.com/game plan.
All right. Mike, do you have any final thoughts on accountability before we wrap up?
I do. It's tough. It really is. It's tough. We talked about how tough it is to hold ourselves personally accountable because we can justify certain things, justify an environment, justify something feeling good, justify work that we've committed to other people. And it's really easy to justify things. It becomes much harder to hold yourself personally accountable to going out and doing the work and moving in the direction that you decided you're going to move in. So be deliberate about how you establish where you want to go, work with other people, let them know so that you have an accountability, work together on this, have an accountability partner, and go out there and get the work done.
All right. Thank you so much, Mike. And thank you for listening to the Find My Catalyst podcast.